Bienvenidos, señores y señores, to another Bleed Lows podcast, YouTube short. I think is what we're calling these, right, Babyface? I don't know if we've actually come up with a name for them, but these are YouTube shorts that are exclusive to YouTube. So if you've come across us and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please make sure you do that before you watch the videos, and then you can watch our past episodes that are part of our podcast. So these little snippets that we're doing, these YouTube shorts, are separate, and it's content only for YouTube. So, of course, breaking news, and that is that Major League Baseball has reinstated Trevor Bauer. Now, we had heard rumblings that a decision was going to be made, and there was no time frame as to when a decision was going to be made. And of course, boom, right before Christmas, they dropped this. So this has just been a kind of a chaotic week in the Major League Baseball world, where we had the Correa thing just happen a day before, and now we have Trevor Bauer. So initial thoughts on Trevor Bauer, Babyface?
Yeah, I mean, I think it caught us all by surprise, right? I mean, we kind of knew this was kind of coming on the horizon, probably the end of the year, beginning of next year. And, they drop it today, right before Christmas. Dodgers are probably already, on vacation mode, right? So they drop this on, and it's kind of like, I mean, the reaction online is kind of, I'd say maybe not what I quite expected. You're seeing a lot of people that are, hey, let the guy play, right? Just let him play. We're going to pay him no matter what, which was a $33 million, but they're saying he's still going to get penalized a little bit going in, for like 50 games or something like that, right? But he still gets to play, but it drops that down to almost like $23 million. So either way, they're going to have to pay that for the upcoming season, whether that's with the Dodgers or on some other team. But, what I've been seeing online, most people seem to be like, we're going to pay the money. Might as well, let him play.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that. So let's just recap what we know right now. So what we know right now, and that's what Babyface had just recapped, is he is reinstated. He has already served the number of games. So he technically is reinstated. Now what they're waiting for is for the Dodgers, and they will have until January 6th to make a decision to basically activate him on the roster. Correct, Babyface? Am I understanding that correctly? He's reinstated. Yeah. He can play, but the Dodgers still need to activate him on the roster.
Yeah, so his suspension was basically cut from, what was it, the 300 and some odd games, right? It was cut down to 194 games. So he's already served that. Last season he missed all 162 plus the time from the previous season. So he's already surpassed that. So he is reinstated, good to go, ready to play, like I said. But obviously the Dodgers need to activate him onto the 40-man, if they're going to keep him or they're going to release him.
Yeah, so now comes, okay, so there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen here. Obviously, the Dodgers can come out and just cut him, release him from his contract. As you said, they'll have to pay him, but then he'll be free to sign with anyone. And some of the comments that I was getting, will there be a compensation? No, this is not a compensation. This is not losing a free agent. This is, you're cutting him, so you're not going to get any compensation for this. If you decide you don't want Trevor Bauer on this team, you're losing him, and you're going to eat that money. It's the same thing that happened with Pujols. When Pujols played for the Dodgers, the Angels cut him. The Dodgers ended up just paying the minimum salary for the rest, and it was prorated because they picked him up in, I don't know how many months into the season. But so here, whoever does pick up Trevor Bauer is just going to be on the hook for the minimum salary for the whole season. Or the Dodgers could decide to keep him, and then that's going to be a circus. Now, they could use him in that starting rotation. And what I saw a lot online was, if we're going to pay him, we might as well get something out of it. That's a lot of what I'm seeing online. It was like, why are we going to pay him to go play for another team that's going to beat us? Well, that's what the Angels did with Pujols, right? But there's another scenario that may happen that we still don't know if it's even a possibility, but Babyface was working his magic behind the scenes. Babyface, what if Trevor Bauer opts out? Can you let us know what you know about if that's even a possibility?
Well, I mean, from my understanding, he had two opt outs, right? He had one after year one, and then one after year two, which would be just this season that passed, and then he'd go into his third year. And I believe, if it's correct, the opt out was he'd get 15 million if he opts out. So if you were able to opt out, and then he'd say, okay, I'll opt out, I'll take my 15 million, and then sign on with another team. If another team's willing to give him 20 million, that's 35. That takes him to more than what he would. I mean, he was going to get 33 this year, but the penalty, so he's down to about 23, 22 million. So he'd end up making more. Now the question is, can he opt out still? I mean, I was trying to get some information to see if he could opt out, because the opt out period passed, right? It's right after the World Series.
Yes.
So, but this is a special case. Now, would they give him like whatever 5 days, 7 days to make that decision? Going forward, if he's able to do that. I mean, you would think they should allow him to do that, right? If he had an opt out in his contract, let him decide, hey, do I want to opt out or do I want to opt in, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the gray area. I'm trying to find out if that's even a possibility.
Well, what's going to be interesting is Bob Nightingale. So consider the source here, people. This to me had me scratching my head. So right when the news broke that Bauer was reinstated, Nightingale immediately came out and said the Dodgers are going to release him. Now, I've heard other reporters leaning towards the fact they think that's what the Dodgers are going to do, but I haven't seen any other reporter that is of merit go out there and say that's definitively what the Dodgers are going to do. So Bob Nightingale coming out there immediately and shooting his shot, saying, hey, they're going to release him. They have until January 6th. Why not explore all the options? Because if this is an option, and I'm sure Bauer's people are trying to do it, because as of recently, I know Bauer's representation released a statement today. They don't think he should have been suspended for any time. So I'm sure his people are like, well, hey, can we have time? What if we opt out, that's 15 million, right? And I know he's already on the hook by the Dodgers, but it's exactly what you said. You mean they already had a deal with the Mets before Bauer came to the Dodgers. And the way Cohen's been going, why not go back to the Mets and say, hey, we'll come here for 20 million? Or the show pods. Hey, I think the show pods are still looking for starting pitching. What's going to be very interesting is if he does get released or he does opt out, if he does leave, is he going to want to pick a team in the National League, or in particular, a team in the National League West, to try to stick it to the Dodgers? Because, I mean, say what you will, and we'll get into that stuff in a later episode. But as of right now, we don't know what's going to happen. There is a possibility. So as much as you guys hate when we start speculating, we're going to deal in hypotheticals right now. Is there any possibility in your mind, Babyface, that the Dodgers start to, give this some time and start to go, well, you know what? We thought the fan reaction was going to be this, but it turns out the fan reaction is not, because we've already had some unscientific polls. Our contributor, Alicia Del Valle, did one, and it was overwhelming. It was, I believe, it was 61%, right, Babyface, that said they wanted Bauer back. It was 61-39, right?
Let me double check. I mean, but that's been even when I posted something on Instagram. I didn't do a poll, but people it's 69-31. But the people that were just responding, I'd say eight out of 10 are saying bring him back, let him play, free Bauer, just everything in support of Bauer, to coming back.
You know what's really interesting is, we were talking off air about this opt-out scenario, And I haven't realized that technically Bauer has been with the Dodgers for 2 years. To me, it feels like he just got suspended last season. And
Well,
it
yeah,
turns and it turns
well,
out that's not the case.
yeah. I mean, the hammer came down last season, but he's been gone since year one. I mean, what he played what like 12 games with the Dodgers, something like that, right? Like in June, right? They suspended him at the end of June,
Yeah,
right?
I've completely lost track of time where I'm just like, it's already been 2 years because his contract will be off the books at the end of 2023. So
yeah,
that's probably even more incentive for the Dodgers. Now, initially, when this news broke, I thought there's no way they're going to bring him back. I thought they're going to cut him because we've heard reports. Now, nobody's gone on the record, but we've heard reports that guys in the locker room don't like him. Well, this is a new locker room now. I mean, we've lost guys like Justin Turner isn't there anymore. Cody Bellinger isn't there anymore. These are new guys that really don't. Now, the issue is this: Kershaw is still there. Now, does Kershaw have a problem with Trevor Bauer? And Kershaw is someone that carries a lot of weight in the Dodgers organization. The new leaders of this locker room, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, do they have issues with Trevor Bauer? Do you think there's any way that the Dodgers organization is checking the pulse on this and going to those players saying, "Hey, what are the I mean, what's it going to be like if we bring this guy back?" Because I believe Andrew Friedman probably wants him back. It's Dodger ownership. It's Mark Walter. It's Stan Kasten. Those are the guys who I feel right now are probably more worried about what the public perception will be of having Trevor Bauer on this team. But you should give yourself at least until January 5th to really just see the lay of the land because it has been now a long time and it almost seems out of sight. Maybe it is enough time where fans have changed their mind on this. And look, I'm one that strongly came against Bauer, but I'm also someone who feels that people deserve a second chance. Now, he has not been remorseful at all. Okay. He hasn't come out there and said he's screwed up or anything like that. But I am a sucker for redemption stories. And if Trevor Bauer becomes all of a sudden a good citizen, I think he deserves the right to do that, to have the opportunity. But are the Dodgers going to risk it? Because it already sounds like his people are saying he should have not have been suspended in the first place. So it doesn't sound like there's any remorse coming on his end. So if the guy's not remorseful and you're going to throw him out there, but the fans don't care, I mean, how many times have we seen it? If we're going to pay him to pitch for another team, we might as well have him pitch for our team.
yeah. I mean, I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Give them the time to explore what every single option is, right? Because we mentioned this off air. I mean, this has been coming for over a year. So how easy would it have been for, hey, whenever that statement comes out, if he's allowed to come back, we don't want him back. A minute later, we post our answer saying Trevor Bauer has been cut, right, released from the
No.
team. It's simple, right? You could easily have done that, but they said no. They saw the statement and they'll address it later. So that makes you think: is it something that they're thinking about? Is it something that Andrew Freeman is going to call up? Hey, Clayton Kershaw. Hey, Freddie Freeman. Hey, Mookie Betts. How do you feel if this guy's on the team? Because that you see this a lot online. He wasn't charged with anything. They did that big investigation. He was not charged anything. No criminal, nothing. Charges were put against him. Now we do know what happened, and a lot of people just by their own standards, hey, that's to the extreme, right? But then again, like, how can we? I mean, what he does in the privacy of his own home, like, how are we going to judge it, right? Like, yeah, that doesn't work for me or whatever, right? But if technically no laws were broken, right, that's kind of what he's saying. Nothing, I wasn't charged with anything. This is what I do. This is, and then there's also the stories of, was he kind of set up? Was they would put out stuff too. Of the girl, like whatever, posting stuff online again. But again, it goes two ways, right? You don't know when that was taken, when, so it's very slippery slope. We don't know what exactly transpired, and it's just hard to say what what can be done. Like, okay, if they keep him, they got to gauge how the fan reaction is going to be, right? And we know Trevor Bauer, he comes back to play for the Dodgers and he's booed wherever. This guy loves that. He is the typical WWF WWE like heel, right? Like
Yeah.
he's gonna eat that up. No matter if it's, even if they booed him, if he came back and played for the Dodgers and they booed him at home, I think he'd still eat that up. Especially when he goes on the road and they boo him. This guy, I think, is made. He seriously is made for that. So, I mean, it's just hard to say. I mean, I can't honestly say, like, I would think they're going to release him. That's my gut feeling, that they're going to release him. But it's hard to say. Like, they do need a pitcher. The thing that no criminal charges were ever levied against him, it kind of makes it like, well, what are you actually punishing him for?
Well, okay, here's to address a couple of the points that you made. The arbiter did rule that he violated the domestic abuse policy of Major League Baseball. So something did happen. So even though in the court of law they didn't press charges against him, we do know that when it comes to the courts, there's a higher level that they have to prove in order to get charges. With Major League Baseball, I mean, it's its own entity, right? So there's a lot of stuff that they had on him that it was never made public. But the arbiter did rule. This is the same arbiter who reduced his suspension, did say he was guilty of violating the policy. So something did happen. So this whole the claims when people say he's innocent, it's not really true. He's not innocent. Something did happen, and you said it too, Babyface. We know something did happen.
Yeah.
But here's the problem that Major League Baseball has, and not only Major League Baseball, but I think all sports have. Aroldis Chapman. Okay? The same thing happened with Aroldis Chapman. That's the reason why the Dodgers didn't make the trade for Aroldis Chapman, right, with the Reds. He had a gun. He was shooting it in a garage, right? So the Dodgers don't make the trade for Aroldis Chapman. The Yankees end up doing, and yeah, people talk about what Chapman did, but it's not held against him, in my opinion, as it is against Bauer. All right. Chapman is pitching. Now people hate Chapman more just because he's just not as dominant as he was. But I find it very interesting that they have completely forgotten, that, hey, Chapman had charges against him and people told him, stay away from him, stay away from him. And then the Yankees came and they benefited from it.
But I think it's a different case with Bauer, as we were saying, because he is like the heel, right? He is the heel, and he's been that throughout his career. He's had issues. He's been outspoken. He's been doing his own thing. So from pretty much the get-go, he's had this kind of like stain on him, right? Like he's this bad. He's a bad dude, right? He marches to his own beat, right? He does things. So he has that stigma on him. Yeah. So when another guy like Chapman, you had never heard anything from Chapman before, right? Ozuna, you had never heard anything Ozuna getting into trouble, right? So these other guys that have gotten into trouble, it's like, oh, it's kind of like one off, right? And then they forget about it. Bauer, like, he had never gotten in trouble like this, but he's always been outspoken and doing his own thing. So I think that plays a part in it too. That could have played a part in his original suspension with Manfred, because those two butted heads all the time. And Manfred could have just said, get rid of this guy for 2 years, to try and get him out of the league or something. I mean, who knows? Who knows what actually went into all that? But I think that is the difference, that Bauer has this negative persona stigma on him. And that kind of, like I said, also, if he gets released from the Dodgers, it's like, Dodgers don't have no real connection. Besides the money that they're paying him, they have no real connection. This guy played, like I said, 20 games with them, got suspended he wasn't like a part of the team. Like if say it was somebody that was a part of the team for years and this happened, there'd be more of a connection to that player, right?
Right.
So with Bauer, if they wipe their hands clean from him, hey, whatever, so be it, right? And that's it.
Look, here the thing is this, and this might be a problem, but in terms of the organization, the Dodgers feel very corporate. Do you get that same sense?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of relationships with businesses in the community. So this is going to be a business decision in the sense of if they do decide, hey, we're going to activate him, well, some of those business partners that they have in the community, they might not like that. If you're going to have Trevor Bauer, pitching on Women's Night at Dodger Stadium, what is that going to look like? I think those are the things that they are going to consider because I feel the Dodgers organization has rabbit ears. They're very sensitive to things that are being said about them. So that to me, I think they're going to consider it. There's no way that they were taken by surprise by this, right? Like someone in Major League Baseball had to give them the heads up, this is coming. So I'm assuming for them to put out the statement that they put, maybe, I don't know. A lot of people were turned off by that statement. What was your reaction to that statement?
I mean, exactly to what you said. Like, they're going to gauge the community. I mean, could you imagine, where spring training is right around the corner, right? And right before they hit the spring training, they do their LA Loves tour, right? Can you imagine Trevor Bauer going on the bus, right? Going around to, to different locations to help out, he's serving food, doing whatever, right? Can you imagine Bauer doing it? Now? It might be good for him to do that, right? Like after what, if they keep him and he's out there and he's doing it and he's in the community showing like, hey, you know what? I made a mistake or whatever. But the thing is, like you said, I don't think he's going to say, hey, I made a mistake. He was always on the defense. Like I didn't do anything wrong. And he's not, like you said, he's not remorseful. So I think it would go a long way if he would come out and say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. I learned from it and I just want to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. He totally would. But for the Dodgers, here's the official statement from the Dodgers. We have just been informed of the arbitrator's ruling and will comment as soon as practical. That's it. That's the equivalent as no comment. But the actual words that they chose in this statement is what I find interesting. As soon as it is practical, what does that mean? Does that mean as soon as you guys do your due diligence to find out whether, hey, turns out nobody's pissed about this, so we're just going to bring the guy back? Here's the problem. Is he going to pose a distraction for the whole season? Because everyone's going to get asked in that locker room, what do you think about having Trevor Bauer on that team? Spring training is going to be nuts. And spring training at this year is going to be very important for the Dodgers because they got to figure out who's going to make this team. So having to deal with Trevor Bauer, I think that's going to be an issue for them. And you mentioned it, that the Community Loves Tour, there's no way the Dodgers are going to put Trevor Bauer out in anything that has to do with the public. And is that someone that you want on your team? Can you have someone on your team that we can't do anything public with him? Like, I'm curious, do you start selling his jersey? Like all these things. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I really don't. As I said, I would like to I believe people deserve a second chance. I believe I'm a sucker for redemption stories, but you have to truly mean it. You truly have to be remorseful for what you did. And it doesn't sound like this guy is. And if we're just going to completely disregard what this guy did and just bring him on the team just to win games, that to me, I think, stands against everything the Dodgers stand for. The Dodgers do everything to try, the Jackie Robinson foundations. I mean, they have the Dodger Foundation, right? they're all about like helping the community and doing good. And I don't know if they're going to be able to handle the heat that they're going to get if they bring back Bauer.
Yeah, I mean it goes back to also, there was a sense, right, that the Dodgers, were listening to, hey, we don't want Correa, right? The fans
Yeah.
didn't want Correa. I know this is a different situation, but is it the same thing? Like, would the fans rather have Correa or Bauer, or they don't want none of them just for complete opposite reasons, right? So, yeah, I mean, I I think if they bring him back, they're going to take a big hit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know, people are going to come out, but we do know in time it's going to blow over, right? A couple starts, he wins games, he goes out there, people boo him and whatever. 4 or 5
Let
starts.
me ask you this, though, Babyface. We think it's going to blow over. What if in the middle of the season he does something else? What if another story comes out again? And that's the thing, right? Because
Yeah.
he's already broken the trust with the Dodgers. So are you willing to take that leap of faith on that guy that he's not going to do anything else that's either going to get him suspended or more importantly pose a distraction because we know how this team is. These guys are, and it might be a detriment to them, but they are businesslike. They show up, they do their job. We're here to play baseball. That's it. It's all about baseball, baseball, baseball. And if this guy, he's a time bomb, right? Because you don't know,
Yeah.
is he going to
Yeah.
do something?
Yeah. And that's the thing. You hit it right on the head. Like, you don't know if as soon as he comes back, he's playing and he gets accused from something in the past, whatever. Could be true, could be not true, but it's going to be a distraction, right? Either way, it's going to be a distraction. You know, Maybe people try and get at him again on Instagram to like he fell before, right? They try and do the same thing to him again, right? He fell for it once, he'll fall for it too, and meet people he shouldn't be meeting online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that to me is probably the biggest issue right there. I hadn't thought of that. Like, can we trust this guy? I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen him get pissed on the mound and he throws the ball,
Yeah.
into center field, right? Like, we know how his mood is, right? So if he gets yanked, he has a bad game. He comes out and he does something on the mound, like, you just don't know, right? It's he could go online and say something dumb. He could post something dumb. Like, I think the risk is really high out there. I think it's going to be too high for the Dodgers to actually say, you know what? I mean, even though they might believe, we want to give you a second chance, but I think the risk might be just too high.
No, I agree with you. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, there'll be some other team in Major League Baseball that will take that risk, that doesn't care about it. But it just strikes me that the Dodgers are a team that is risk averse. They don't like taking risks, or if they do take risks, it's very calculated risks. That's the reason why they don't give many people these long contracts, right? Dylan Hernandez had told us this before. The Dodgers like to win. They like to win deals. In particular, Andrew Friedman likes to win deals. And I just think that Trevor Bauer is too much of a wild card where you can't guarantee a win. I mean, the trust is broken. And, and here's the other thing, too, that we haven't talked about. The guy's been away for how long? And I get it that he's trying to stay in shape and he's throwing, but that's not the same thing as game action. I mean, we saw this with David Price. He got off to a slow start this year, or the year after he sat out for COVID. The guy hadn't pitched for a long time. So it's going to take Trevor Bauer some time to get back into game shape, to get to that Cy Young level. And who knows if he gets back to the Cy Young level. And I know that people are just like, hey, we need him. But there's no guarantee that he's going to pitch well.
Yeah, I mean, what if what if they did bring him back, right? He comes in and he just bombs, right? Like,
Yeah,
and then what? To be like, get rid of this guy, get rid, right? It's
exactly.
kind of the same thing. I mean, I do think there probably is a team that will take a chance on him if he got released. I mean, because it's going to be pretty much for free, and
Yeah.
I mean they'll have to deal with the PR stuff of like, hey, we're trying to bring this guy in, and maybe the second chance, whatever, it's goodwill. But the moment he screws up, they could release him and whatever. There's no ties there either because they're not paying him. So
I mean,
you
that's
know,
a good point in the sense that it's less of a risk for other teams because if they do pick him up, it's just going to be for the minimum. So if they decide I don't want to deal with this anymore, they could cut him and they're only on the hook for the minimum, as opposed to the Dodgers being on the hook. One of the things we forgot to mention in the beginning is even if they do pay him what they owe him, which is what comes out to what, 22 million, 23 million,
right around there.
they still come under, they're just right under the luxury tax. So the one thing though that would happen though is I think then it might affect them come the trade deadline, right? Because if they then try to acquire someone who has a larger contract, then they're going to get over that luxury tax. So
Yeah.
this decision to bring back Trevor Bauer is not just only in terms of what's it going to do to the community. It is going to affect them in baseball terms because not only does it take up a roster spot, but then I think it also limits them as to what they can do at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, if they do, like I said, end up keeping him, I mean, they'd probably explore trades, with some of the guys they got right now. I mean, I don't know how much they can shed from the guys that are currently on the
Yeah.
roster. I mean, they're big guys or guys that aren't going to move, right? The
Yeah.
Clintons, the Mookies, the Freemans, they're not going to move those guys. I mean, they might move somebody like Austin Barnes or who else? I mean, there's really not that many guys that are making, probably over $5 million. So
Yeah. So either way, it's already affected them. It's already affected their ability to make trades because now if they are going to make a trade, they're going to either have to go over the tax or they're going to have to get somebody who's not making a lot of money. And if someone is good and they're not making a lot of money, no one's going to trade that person. They have them for control.
that was another comment that I saw that people were saying, "Oh, trade him." Yeah, that's a possibility, but I mean, no one's gonna want to trade him for fair value, right? No
Yeah.
one's gonna. The Dodgers would have to like eat more than half of that contract, anyways.
Yeah.
To get him out, and like I said, and again, still, if a team's interested in him, I think they'd probably wait. Like, well, if the Dodgers release him, then we could just jump on him after, right? And get him for the minimum.
We're going to wrap up with this. It has not been a pleasant offseason, I think, for the Dodgers. The lack of signings, of at least big name signings, and now realizing it's starting to sink into me how much Bauer now is going to affect them, whether he's on the team or not. It's going to affect them in terms of the transactions that they can do, which puts even more pressure on these young kids from the minor leagues. These guys need to hit on these guys, or if not, it's going to be a tough season for the Dodgers. So that's going to do it for us. Again, if you've stumbled across us, we are the Bleed Los Podcast. We have our regular episodes. Go ahead, babyface.
Real quick, I just wanted to get. So what do you think is going to happen? Are they going to keep him or are they going to release him?
Oh, they're going to release him. I think they're going to release him.
That's their okay.
You just after talking it out with you right now, there was a slight thinking, oh my God, they're gonna keep him. But thinking about it right now, it's just too much of a risk. And how can you trust that guy? How can you bring that guy back into your locker room? Having it, like when you brought up the community tour thing, that the Dodgers do a lot of stuff in the community, and they put their players out there. And you can't put that guy out there because exactly what you said, babyface. What if you have him out at an event and there's somebody out there who just wants to goad him, who just wants to get underneath his skin, and he says something about it, and Bauer loses his shit. And now you have this big old incident that happens. It's just the way this organization is run. I think they care too much about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like I said, I know where the Dodgers are at as far as the pitching. They could definitely use a guy of Trevor Bauer's capabilities, right? So I mean, I'd want that. But then, we get into the other stuff, like, same thing. Like, I would love to see him, come back from this and have that redemption, right? And the second chance, right? We all deserve second chances when we mess up. But I think, like you said, just as important, I think it would go a long way if he actually came out and said, "Hey, I did wrong." That and I mean, I'm not saying that if the Dodgers saw that, they'd say, "Okay, yeah, you're back on the team." I think it would help. It would help a little bit,
Yeah, it
but
would.
I don't. But I'm still, like I said, everything else, the community stuff, the Dodgers' reputation, the way they're looked upon, by everybody, the standard that they hold. I think they got to cut them loose.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there's people in that organization that want him back. But when you do that you get a piece of paper and you write down the pros and the cons, I just think the cons outnumber the pros.
Yeah.
In terms of an organization, this is not just baseball. This is not, and I know the fan is thinking about it in terms of just baseball and just winning games, but the Dodgers organization can't look at it in terms of just winning games. This is what many people consider a pillar of an organization in the LA community, and they do try to give back. We got baseball fields built on them because of the Dodgers Foundation. So for as much as you want to go ahead and complain about what the Dodgers don't do, let's give them credit for what the Dodgers do in the community. And I don't know if the Dodgers want to damage that reputation, because it took them some time to rebuild that after McCourt, the damage that the McCourt ownership did.
Yeah, and like I said, you bring him back. What are you going to do? Are you going to put like an ankle monitor on this guy to monitor what he's doing all the time? Like, it's just, you know, I just, I just think, yeah, it's going to be too tough to try and sell him to bring him back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, talking it out here and hearing myself, the ideas that you're bringing up here, I just don't see. I just don't see it, and it's just unfortunate because it just dawned on me in this episode. It's going to affect us when we make trades. I was all gung ho and be like, hey, when the Dodgers, don't worry, guys, they're not signing anybody. But when they come to the trade deadline, that's when they're going to make their big move. But now that I just realized that having to pay this guy, they're right up against the luxury tax, the Dodgers are screwed. So I don't know how much, and we'll probably talk. We can make this another YouTube short. I don't know how much this Reynolds center fielder from the Pirates is making that everybody is all gung ho about, that the Dodgers should trade for him. Guys, the reality of it is, if they really want to stay under that luxury tax, it doesn't look like anybody else is coming. We're going to have to ride with the guys that we have and hope that they have good years.
Yep.
So that's going to do it. This is, again, it's a YouTube short, so you can only watch this on YouTube. If you've come across us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to do more of these, but also make sure you subscribe to our podcast. You can watch the podcast episodes on our YouTube channel. If you're one of those guys that wants to listen in the car, make sure you subscribe to the audio version of our podcast, which is found anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. So, yo he sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mi colega Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima.